in December of '86, I was taking a trial. The entire trial lasted only a couple of hours. I was found guilty. I was sent to prison for something I didn't do. I went to prison at 17. I was released at 53 years old. And I was 18 when I arrived at Angola. I was mostly concerned about living and not dying in prison. I mean, I really didn't know what to do. I didn't even know how to process this. The prison life, you know, just the field work. I mean, I had never actually worked in my life. And to have to go out and dig a ditch, to cut grass, not with a lawnmower, with a hoe, or disc blank blade. I mean, this is real manual labor. And this is intense manual labor. And you working out in the elements. You working in the summer, you working in in the winter. I mean, in the freezing cold, I mean, extreme heats. You out there, no matter what, you know. And that's extremely hard. I mean, to have to pick certain farm vegetables, you know, and not knowing how. To have to pick cotton and not knowing how. I mean, all of this stuff is a challenge to someone who had never done this stuff before. And it puts you in a position with security, because security is not concerned about who you are or what type of work you've done. I mean, they want to get their work done, they want their quota, and they're expecting you to get it. So you have an option. You either do the work or you go to lockdown.
Today is day 3 of Voice of the Experience versus State of Louisiana, particularly Angola, the state penitentiary. And the goal of this trial is to end farmline agriculture inside the state penitentiary. We've heard from several incarcerated brothers who testified to the psychological harm, the mental harm, the physical harm, also how working in the farmline is not voluntary work, but also forced labor. And if they refuse to work, they will definitely be punished or disciplined. We heard from several experts who've associated the farmline in Angola as a simulation of chattel slavery. The types of work that was associated with chattel slavery, it exists inside the farmline agriculture. The conditions of work that exist inside chattel slavery also is present inside the farmline, and also the historical context, being that Angola is a former plantation. And many of the men who work in the fields in Angola are of African descent, which means that many of their grandfathers and their ancestors have also worked in those fields. So there's a psychological harm, there's triggers that run deep in their bones. And like I said, the goal of this particular trial is to end chattel slavery, not just the conditions of it, just put it into the practice altogether.
And so why are you passionate about this?
I mean, I'm just as impacted, man. I spent 25 years of my life in Angola. I've never worked in the fields, but I was an eyewitness to the harm. I watched guys coming out the field and they would choose to lay on the floor to get an hour rather than going to lunch before they go back in the field on the second hour, the second half. I've seen how the field tear brothers down. I've seen men break their ankles, break their legs intentionally to avoid going to the field because of the work in the field and the triggers associated with that work, the physical harm associated with that work. They didn't break from it. It's complex trauma. I mean, the field is one of those layers inside Angola that's associated with complex trauma. And many of the brothers, to avoid complex trauma, they inflict harm upon themselves to get a duty status.
Yeah, I read about something, I think this was years and years ago, when a bunch of brothers like cut their tendons.
Exactly. You know, it happens, man. They prefer to cut themselves to get a duty status rather than go in that field for the rest of their life. Like one of the incarcerated brothers testified, he said that the field is a drain. It's a life sucker. It's a drain, which means it pulls all your natural resources from you. It pulls from your spiritual, your emotional, and your mental health. It drains that until you're no more, and then you die.
And one of the things that a couple of them said yesterday when was this kind of like they're on parade. They have tour buses coming by.
Oh yeah, so it's a circus, man. They are like in a zoo. Here come the people on buses, watching them work in the field. It's entertainment, man. And that's directly associated with Antebellum South.
And so this is something that Vogt is leading and spearheading this.
Our goal is to end the farmline altogether.
And so this trial, the judge could
actually end the practice of farmline agriculture in all prisons and jails in Louisiana.
Okay. And so he'll make that decision here coming up soon.
A couple of weeks, a couple of months.
So why haven't, I mean, like I heard yesterday too that they, finally started giving some shade stations or whatever.
Because this is the first time that it's actually being exposed. That practice has been going on inside that prison since 1901, when the state of Louisiana first bought the prison. And it's being talked about in 2026 because political people are waking up and seeing a comparison between chattel slavery and the farmline and realizing, hey, that thing is very harmful, man. And they're listening to the voices of those men who are still working the field, who've been in the field like, man, this is harming me. And I give much props to Promise of Justice Initiative and their team of attorneys because they're leading the charge to end the practice. And I mean, they got to be some of the most compassionate lawyers I've ever met. I have to give much kudos to PGI and all the staff attorneys over there for their strategy, their approach, their investigative skills. And as you can tell, if you listen to that trial, you can see that they're on point in everything they're doing. The cross-examination strategy, how each lawyer is assigned to a witness, that shows that they're intentional about ending this practice.
Promise of Justice Initiative is a civil rights legal organization. We do organizing, policy, and criminal and civil litigation. So we are focused on the dignity and autonomy of people inside of prisons, people who are harmed by the carceral system. And so we look for systemic ways to put pressure on this system on behalf of people. So litigation is one of the arms that we use and that we're known for. It's hard. Even right now, we're really, the 8th Amendment, which is cruel and unusual amendment, a part of our Constitution, is pretty bad law. But we really do believe that we can make a strong case around dignitary harm, that this is subjugating humans in a way that is unconstitutional. And I think it's pretty hard to, it makes a tremendous amount of sense to us, but it is difficult to prove under the Constitution. So we have also, obviously, the ADA claim that we're making around the dangerousness, particularly to people who have medical issues, around the grueling sort of nature of working in heat or without proper tools and these sorts of things. So we're trying, we believe that Farmline is problematic for so many reasons, and these are the angles that we think we hope will be successful.
And so what does being successful look like?
Ultimately, I mean, I think that it's pretty hard to resurrect the system and extricate it from what is basically modern slavery. However, if that's not a path that the judge can take, what we really hope is, we can find ways to, agriculture labor doesn't have to be undignified. It doesn't have to be servile and menial. It can be meaningful, and that means it can be voluntary. It means that it should be safe. It means that people would be paid. So I think there's a lot of different ways that we could find success.
And so just in listening, it sounds like there's already been some success thus far just with bringing the suit.
Yes.
And they're talking about, we put on all these stations now, cooling stations, and even today that they're, relooking at the things that allow, medications or things that are medical.
Yeah, it's interesting what people will do when they're being sued. So we don't trust our opponent that when the lawsuit is over, whether or not these things will stay in place. And even as they've been pretty minor changes. But yes, indeed, there has been increased shade opportunities. People actually have gloves now after, how many, 100 years or something. So But we know that's inadequate. And we also know that people don't have access to these things all the time, even as we stand here today in the middle of a trial. So.
And what would be the big win? What would you be hoping that the judge would come down and say?
I think what we want him to say is that Farmline is cruel and unusual, and that Louisiana cannot continue a system that is basically akin to slavery, and we have moved beyond this as a society, and that's what we want.
And so I'm assuming just with the process, if the judge comes out and rules how you would like him to rule, then there will be appeals and all that kind of.
Oh, it's up to Angola. They could just say, yeah, we agree. We should stop. I suspect they won't do that.
Because ultimately it's the governor that's in charge.
The government. So Department of Corrections, Angola. If they could today decide that they want to get rid of the system. It's completely within their control.
Awesome. Well, thanks for all your work you're doing on this.
Thank you. My name is Samantha Kennedy. I'm the Executive Director for the Promise of Justice Initiative. We are a Louisiana-based frontline civil rights organization fighting for the freedom, dignity, and autonomy of people harmed by the carceral system. Today we are standing in front of the federal court in the Middle District of Louisiana, where one of the most critical trials of our era is taking place. The question before the court is whether Louisiana is going to continue resurrecting slavery to harm incarcerated people. The state of Louisiana controls the bodies of human beings inside its prisons and systematizes humiliation and the stripping of their dignity. In Louisiana, incarcerated men are forced to work in fields on what is known as the Farmline, at great risk to their lives, to their health, and are forced to do so at the threat of violence, being put in the dungeon, degraded, and humiliated. This trial follows years of investigation, working with currently and formerly incarcerated people to understand their experiences, the issues that so few of us can see or have access to, all of which has allowed for robust litigation. When we think of the atrocities of the past, in this instance, chattel slavery, I think there is a common tendency to cast judgment on those in the past as less enlightened than we are today, or to make excuses for harms, saying, well, that was back then. That was the past. But when we look at the Farmline, it is clear that in Angola prison, slavery never ended. Men on the Farmline today are treated and used as beasts of burden. And as Dr. Toss, medical director of Angola, said, men on the Farmline are subpar human beings. The Farmline trial, Vote v. LeBlanc, is part of Promise of Justice Initiative's End Plantation Prisons project, an ambitious call for a different future, a call for a future where everyone is deserving of dignity and autonomy over their own bodies, and where the legacy of slavery exists only in history books and not in the nightmares of people subjugated to the state. Today, we will hear from Samantha Pouchot, Senior Staff Attorney of Promise of Justice Initiative and lead attorney for this case, Lydia Wright, Legal Director for Rights Behind Bars, Joshua Hill Jr., Litigation Partner at Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison, Donald Arbonat, Deputy Director of Organizing for Voice of the Experienced, and also Association Plaintiff for the lawsuit. Dr. Jasmine Jackson, Co-Executive Director of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance, and then finally Norris Henderson, Executive Director for Voice of the Experience, and also Associational Plaintiff for the lawsuit. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Samantha Pouchot. I'm a Senior Staff Attorney at the Promise of Justice Initiative and lead counsel for this case, Vote v. LeBlanc. I am proud to partner with my colleagues, Vote, and the brave plaintiffs who brought this case to change the realities of their lives and those of others. The plaintiffs in this case have endured realities at Angola prison that many of us cannot begin to imagine. This class action lawsuit challenges the Farmline at Angola. The Farmline is a punishment where men are forced into former plantation fields under dangerous, dehumanizing, and humiliating conditions that echo slavery. Our clients have described toiling in the sun, bodies in pain and health at risk, planting and harvesting crops without tools, digging in the dirt with their hands and on their knees, all under the threat of violence. Angola, an 18,000-acre former plantation, has controlled and exploited captured Black people for hundreds of years, first during chattel slavery and today through incarceration. This week in court, we presented evidence that the Farmline violates the 8th Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment and endangers people in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We heard from expert witnesses, prison officials, and most importantly, the men who are forced to work on the Farmline. Class Representative Joseph Guillory testified that the prison guards frequently called him boy while forcing him to dig potatoes with his bare hands, on his knees, and forced him to perform degrading tasks like watering crops individually with a styrofoam cup. Incarcerated witness Stephen Major described tour buses passing by the worksite, making him feel like he was in a zoo, waiting for someone to throw him a peanut. Tredarius Moorhead described the recurring nightmares he experienced while he was forced to work on the Farmline. He explained that after being forced to work in the pecan grove, "I had a dream. I see bodies hanging like they've been lynched on the pecan trees. As I got closer, I realized every one of them was me." None of this is acceptable, not in the time of slavery and not in 2026. Every person has inherent dignity, both morally as a member of our human community and legally under our Constitution. That dignity does not disappear at the prison gate. We are in trial this week and next to end the dehumanizing and degrading practices of the Farmline once and for all. It is remarkable that in the year 2026, we must put the institution of slavery, the Farmline, on trial, but that is what justice demands. We look forward to presenting the remainder of our case. In closing, I'll share the words of Class Representative Darius Williams, who's sitting at council table with us today, said that being forced to work those fields feels like the past never ended. It just changed its name. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lydia Wright, Legal Director of Rights Behind Bars, and I will be brief. It is not a revolutionary concept in 2026 that work should be compensated. It should be meaningful. It should be safe. And it should be voluntary. And our brothers and sisters on the inside deserve no less. And this case is showing, and we will prove, that the U.S. Constitution does not stop at the front gates to Angola prison. Thank you for being here.
My name is Joshua Hill. I'm a litigation partner at Paul Weiss. And I'm standing here representing a team of 12 Paul Weiss lawyers, paralegals, and staff that are honored and privileged to be a part of this case. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., the arc of the moral universe is long, but I think this case shows that it will bend towards justice. The evidence that we've presented in court this week and will continue to do next week show that as the Farmline currently operates, it is a threat to human safety, it is an assault on human dignity, and it has no place in modern society. It is a relic, it is an anachronism, and we believe it should be swept into the dustbin of history. Thank you.
My name is Donald Arbinott, and I am a Deputy Director of Voice of the Experience. I just want to reiterate some of the things that has already been said, but there are two things that I like to stand out. My experience, lived experience with that Farmline in Angola, it was a very degrading practice of forcing incarcerated men in a servant-master relationship on a plantation, present-day Angola, to work under inhumane conditions of humiliation, physical threats, and psychological harm. And I've experienced every one of those things, and I've seen other men experience these same things. And a lot of those same men didn't make it out of Angola because they couldn't deal with those conditions. A lot of them didn't make it out during the times that I was going through this right here. And one other thing I like to say is that system today perpetuates daily psychological, racial trauma of slavery, which you have heard all through this hearing, that is deeply rooted in the punitive, degrading history of white supremacy. And I experienced that. And even to this day, that same system is in place. And one of the things I like to say, the Farmline adds nothing to public safety. It never did. It wasn't a place that you were sentenced to go serve out a sentence and be rehabilitated. It was for punishment, just punishment. And it was done in the worst way it could be done. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. Want to make sure y'all see my in the Farmline. That's what we're here for. Okay, so I'm Dr. Jazz, and I'm with the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. We're a coalition of Black-led organizations that are focused on food sovereignty and land justice. We're grounded in community agreements like self-determination and radical ecology, meaning that we uphold non-extractive, environmentally regenerative practices that seek to restore the health and balance of relationships between the earth and humanity. So let me tell you why the Farmline at Angola Prison exists directly in opposition to these principles. First, it's an 18,000-acre modern-day plantation where incarcerated men are forced to dig ditches and plant crops by hand without any appropriate equipment or concern for their health, all under the threat of armed guards. The Farmline is dangerous in dehumanizing practices of forcing incarcerated men, especially Black men, into these plantation fields to work under conditions that are intended to simulate chattel slavery. It's unsanitary. Incarcerated men have been told to use the restroom in the field due to the severe control and oppressive labor practices leading to the burning of crops instead of consuming them and contributing to the food system. This creates waste and perpetuates capitalism, and the food does not go into the food system. The Farmline at Angola is a form of prison labor that is solely based on punishment. You heard that. It is not the production of actual crops or learning transferable farming practices. Incarcerated people at Angola are forced to endure this grueling labor and earn 0 to 4 cents an hour, even after years of work. I was just speaking with a person who's working in the agriculture industry, and they named that it's degrading that agriculture as a career overall, and that due to the punishment, that this is actually creating a societal disconnect of our food and our farmers. So lastly, the Farmline does not provide any beneficial skills to those formerly incarcerated as they re-enter society. Many of the men who leave Angola want nothing to do with agriculture after being subjected to such humiliating and traumatic conditions for years, if not decades. Interacting with soil actually triggers the brain to release serotonin and other happy chemicals, which acts as a natural antidepressant and stress reliever. The Farmline, it stands in direct contradiction to this therapeutic practice due to the punitive and inhumane conditions that incarcerated laborers are forced to work under. Farming is meant to feed and heal communities, not to be harmful to them. So let's continue to fight to end this modern day chattel slavery, exploitative practice that's also known as the Farmline for good. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Norris Henderson. I'm the Executive Director of VOTE, which is the acronym for Voice Experience. And I want to open with another quote by Dr. King. And Dr. King said, in times of controversy, consensus acts as if popular, cowardice acts as if safe, but conscience acts as if right. And so that's why we're out here today, because we believe what we're doing is right. I want to thank all of our legal partners from PGI. I want to thank Samantha, I want to thank Lydia, I want to thank Joshua and their whole team. I want to thank all our agricultural partners that are out here supporting this, because without y'all voice, our voice is just a voice crying in the wilderness. And so There's a saying about truth, and truth was on trial today. And I think for the most part that we saw that these folks are just trying to hold on to a system that they have already acknowledged there's no value added to the people working in the farm line. And so, you know, for this to be continued, I'm hopeful that we'll make the inroads that we're trying to make with doing this work. But we're here to the last brick fall. Our motto is no surrender, no retreat. No surrender, no retreat. And so we're here. This fight is going to be our fight until it ends. And so our other motto is we're willing to fight one day longer than them.